Our position on this matter is based on our strong belief that diplomacy and dialogue should remain the guiding principle for the resolution of outstanding issues concerning Iran's nuclear program. We strongly support the basic premise of the draft resolution, which is to allow more time to diplomatic efforts through a technical extension of the Resolution 2231. In the Council's consideration of this issue, we repeatedly heard members lending support to diplomacy and a negotiated solution to Iran nuclear issue. We also consistently heard that the time was not enough for diplomatic solution and talks need more time. We have come to a stage where buying more time would be a critically important prerequisite to move forward. With this in mind, the only logical step, in our view, would be a technical extension of Resolution 2231. Such a decision would not impinge on any party's rights or responsibilities, but provide more time for diplomatic efforts to find a lasting solution acceptable to all states and for reaching consensus within this Council. Mr. President, Pakistan has consistently advocated the primacy of diplomatic engagement and the imperative of avoiding confrontation and conflict. In our view, the JCPOA provided the best blueprint for resolution of Iran nuclear issue, outlining rights, commitments, obligations, and responsibilities of relevant parties. The spirit and basic framework of JCPOA could still prove useful if there is a mutual desire to move forward in a spirit of compromise. Just like any international agreement, the implementation of the JCPOA is a shared responsibility of all parties concerned. Any disputes and differences arising from its implementation should be resolved in a cooperative manner without resort to extreme measures. We believe that coercive measures would not resolve outstanding issues, but complicate them further. Sanctions will directly hurt ordinary Iranians and diminish the prospects of regional connectivity, trade, and economic development. Imposition of sanctions will not just be damaging for the targeted country, but also impact its neighborhood and beyond. Pakistan, therefore, opposes intimidation or coercion and calls for a cooperative approach, focusing on mutual recognition of core concerns and redressal measures by all parties concerned. Rather than sticking to maximalist positions, there is a need for realistic expectations and accommodation of a consensual, peaceful solution. The nature of challenges require more, not less diplomatic efforts and engagement. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Pakistan for the statement. Now I give the floor to representative of Guyana.
Mr. President, Ambassador Jihuncha, since this is the first time I'm taking the floor since your arrival, allow me to extend a warm welcome to the Security Council and the United Nations. I also acknowledge the presence of the representative of Iran in this meeting. Mr. President, Guyana recognizes the urgency and importance of addressing the Iranian nuclear issue, and we appreciate the efforts of the pen holders, China and the Russian Federation, to give breathing space for diplomacy. We reiterate our position that multilateralism and diplomacy must be fully utilized to resolve complex international issues, such as the one being discussed today. Our view is that the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action remains a crucial instrument for ensuring the exclusively peaceful nature of Iran's nuclear program and for promoting regional and international security. We took note of the positive elements contained in the draft resolution, including its call for the immediate resumption of negotiations among all original participants of the JCPOA, and its welcoming of the recent agreement between Iran and the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA. However, since this is the second resolution on the issue in just a week, brought by different parties to the JCPOA, it is clear that there are differences in approach on how to address the underlying issues that have stalled progress in implementing the JCPOA as endorsed by Resolution 2231. Guyana is therefore of the view that a technical extension may not be enough to make progress. We believe a more comprehensive approach involving all participants is required to foster a lasting diplomatic solution to the Iranian nuclear issue. We urge all parties to engage in good faith to resolve their differences and security concerns by prioritizing dialogue as a matter of urgency. The path of dialogue and mutual respect is the only way to achieve a durable solution that is in the best interest of all. Dialogue, however, Mr. President, requires first and foremost an agreement among the concerned parties to have that dialogue. Without such a foundation, in the spirit of mutual respect and shared purpose, the conversation takes another form. With the approaches taken on this file, one resolution last week, another today, one must question whether at this time we have a true commitment to dialogue. It is with this consideration and with the hope that the parties can come to an agreement on the way forward that Guyana abstained on this resolution. In closing, Guyana reaffirms its commitment to working with the Council to ensure, working with all Council members to ensure that all concerns related to the Iranian nuclear issue can be resolved expeditiously. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Guyana for the statement. Now I give the floor to the representative of Sierra Leone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the People's Republic of China and the Russia Federation for tabling the draft resolution and for their continued engagement in seeking a diplomatic solution to this complex and sensitive matter. The initiative has created an opportunity for dialogue among all involved parties, which Sierra Leone strongly supports. We also welcome the participation of the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran in today's meeting. Sierra Leone once again notes the broader geopolitical context within which the Council has been called upon to discharge its charter responsibilities, namely maintaining international peace and security and addressing threats thereto. We are mindful of the provisions of the Charter and of international law that provide for lawful redress for internationally wrongful acts of states, including in the present context concerning the Islamic Republic of Iran. In our previous vote on the text submitted by the President of the Security Council, we explained our principled position on non-proliferation cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency, and the importance of sustained dialogue among the relevant parties. Sierra Leone remains firmly committed to the integrity of the global non-proliferation and disarmament architecture and to the peaceful settlement of dispute through political and diplomatic dialogue. Compliance with the NPT and its safeguards, including unrestricted IAEA monitoring, is essential to building trust, strengthening confidence, and ensuring regional stability. We therefore welcome reports that Iran and the IAEA have signed an agreement aimed at resuming cooperation after a period of suspension. This agreement, concluded on 9 September 2025 and facilitated by the Arab Republic of Egypt, outlines practical steps for implementing safeguards and enhancing transparency regarding Iran's nuclear facilities. It represents a significant strand of the ongoing negotiations, a step towards rebuilding trust, addressing Iran's security concerns, and ensuring compliance with the NPT Safeguards Agreement. While, however, recognizing the stated aim of the draft to create space for negotiations through a 6-month technical extension of arrangements linked to Resolution 2231, we note that the proposal does not offer tangible outcomes, specifically concrete and time-bound steps that restore access, lower enrichment levels, and rebuild continuity of knowledge. It is in this context and in the understanding that Iran retains the opportunity for redress under international law that Sierra Leone cannot agree to the text as it stands. On this issue, we believe that the principle of non-proliferation carries a much higher weight given the potential consequences. The associated risks remain high, and without verifiable measures to redress them, the credibility of the non-proliferation regime is undermined. we underscore that our vote today is not intended to support an imposition of sanctions, but rather to ensure that negotiations proceed in good faith and in full cooperation with the IAEA. It reflects our conviction that diplomacy must deliver results that preserve peace, restore confidence, and strengthen regional stability. We urge all of the parties to the JCPOA original participants to immediately resume negotiations related to Resolution 2231. These elements together will create the conditions to de-escalate tensions, sequence concrete confidence-building steps, and bring this file back under effective verification. The regional situation remains fragile, and further de-escalation would only worsen the overall outlook. We call on all concerned parties to exercise maximum restraint and support the escalation efforts. A time-bound, negotiated diplomatic solution remains the only sustainable and viable path to resolving this matter of international peace and security. Sierra Leone will continue to work with all Council members to shape a balanced outcome that preserves the global non-proliferation regime, opposes the authority of the Council, and supports regional stability through a credible, results-oriented process under Resolution 2231. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Sierra Leone for the statement. Now I give the floor to representative of Panama.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, President. As part of our interventions in the Council on this file, we have reiterated consistently our conviction that diplomatic dialogue is the only way to reach fair, lasting, and sustainable agreements. We've also strongly advocated for the path of negotiations and respect of international law and strengthening of multilateralism. This week, during the high-level debates and sessions, left us with a clear impression that international cooperation is essential to overcome the most complex challenges to international peace and security. This is why we regret that, in spite of the efforts undertaken by all parties, it was not possible to reach an agreement. Our country shares the concerns regarding the progress of the Iranian nuclear program and recognizes geopolitical tensions around this. It's clear that a lot of work remains to be done here. We reiterate our respectful appeal to the Islamic Republic of Iran to commit fully and constructively to cooperate with the IAEA by resuming its obligations and commitments undertaken that guarantee access, transparency, and effective supervision to restore confidence in the exclusively peaceful character of its program. We are at a very delicate moment where we need to show responsibility to avoid a weakening of the non-proliferation regime and prevent consequences that could be deadly for the region. Today, during the International Day for the Total Elimination of Nuclear Weapons, Panama reiterates its commitment to peace, security, and global disarmament. Our country, faithful to its role as a bridge among nations, will continue to work with the international community to ensure respect for international law and strengthening of global governance and non-proliferation, ensuring that future generations live in a more secure planet. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Panama for the statement. Now I give the floor to representative of Greece.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like also to welcome you, sir, to the Security Council. I would also like to welcome the presence of the Minister of Iran. It is very important for the Security Council to be able to discuss and assess now in the future all initiatives regarding the Iranian nuclear program and the JCPOA under the Resolution 2231. I think we can all agree on that. I wish to make the following points and expand on the reasons Greece voted the way it did. First, I wish to once again reiterate Greece's concern on the scope and nature of Iran's nuclear program. Non-proliferation is among the basic pillars of international security. It is of paramount importance. Its preservation and continued universality is in the interests of all states. Granting an unconditional extension now would only postpone the problem and shift the focus away from the difficult but necessary negotiations that are long overdue. We need meaningful negotiations and a peaceful solution. The time for that is now. Second, and consequently, allow me to stress in the strongest possible terms that diplomacy must continue irrespectively of the present state of negotiations. We do realize that at this hour, this may sound difficult, if not impossible. However, it is necessary. Third, we are still in the high-level week. All the interested parties are still in the same building. We strongly urge all the sides to begin talks again, and if needs be, again after that. Fourth and final point. Even if an agreement is not reached immediately, we call upon all the primary concerned parties to keep talking. A viable and sustainable solution for the Iranian nuclear issue can only come through diplomacy and dialogue. We believe that a peaceful solution through meaningful negotiations is still within reach. An agreement will be good for all. The stakes are too high otherwise. I thank you.
I thank Representative of Greece for the statement. Now I give the floor to Representative of Slovenia.
Thank you, Mr. President, and welcome to the Council from our side as well. Colleagues, 10 years ago, JCPOA brought about a robust regime that comprehensively addressed a pressing international security issue. It suffered some hard blows throughout the past years. Slovenia regretted the US withdrawal from the plan and Iran's cessation of its implementation. We remain concerned with the scope and transparency of Iran's nuclear program, especially the stockpile of highly enriched uranium. We have called out Iran's unacceptable disregard for its non-proliferation obligations. And we have also called out the equally unacceptable attack on its nuclear facilities. Mr. President, Slovenia voted against the draft resolution because it merely decides on a technical extension of the 10-year term defined by the Resolution 2231. It does not address any specific steps or conditions that would restore trust in the peaceful nature of the Iranian nuclear program or restore trust between the JCPOA participants. Such extension, if it is to provide space for diplomacy and encourage substantial negotiations, should come with precisely defined commitments and conditions to be met. We regret that this is not the case. This resolution seemed to do little else but divide, and this in times when we should be uniting our forces in the interest of peace. Mr. President, JCPOA truly was a landmark achievement of multilateralism. Slovenia wishes to see its regime and objectives meaningfully restored. There is no other solution to the challenge of Iran's nuclear program. We call on all sides to engage in diplomacy even after the sanctions snap back tomorrow. We call on all to engage seriously and without preconditions. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Slovenia for the statement. Now I give the floor to representative of Russian Federation again.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are grateful to Security Council colleagues who supported those councils who supported the draft resolution submitted by the Russian Federation and China on the technical extension of Security Council Resolution 2231 for a period of 6 months up until April 2026, and the immediate resumption of negotiations within the format of the initial parties to the JCPOA to find a way out of the crisis around it. Those members of the Security Council who supported this document reaffirmed their commitment to international law, to equitable and mutually respectful dialogue and to the task of maintaining international peace and security. The adoption of this would have preserved a chance for the international community to reach a diplomatic resolution to the conflict in the context of the Iranian nuclear program. We regret the fact that a number of Security Council colleagues were unable to summon the courage or the wisdom to support our draft. Their abstention points to at the minimum, to doubts vis-a-vis the destructive policy that is being carried out by the U.S., the UK, and France to definitively dismantle the nuclear deal and to bury the diplomatic path towards resolving the crisis around it. However, one way or another, through their vote, they are becoming complicit in this. Now, turning to those who refused to support our draft, now there certainly are no longer any illusions. These countries have definitively demonstrated that all of their assurances about their focus on arriving at a diplomatic resolution to the Iranian nuclear program issue for all of these years were mere noise. And from the statement from the French delegation prior to the vote, which is an unfortunate attempt to justify himself, it is clear that honesty and good sense as well as dignity is something which our Western colleagues have definitively jettisoned. Moreover, those who voted against our draft in this way also spoke out against further cooperation between Iran and the IAEA, which it explicitly and unambiguously called for in the second operative paragraph. So you, colleagues, can write a grievance to yourselves if problems arise here in this connection. And on the whole, frankly speaking, it is difficult not to be under the impression that our Western colleagues did not even read our draft resolution, because virtually everything that they called for in this chamber is already enshrined in the text. Mr. President, turning now to the statement delivered by the UK and France, allegedly about their alleged triggering of snapback, we categorically reject them as invalid, and we repeatedly set out our arguments in detail, specifically in the joint letter from the foreign ministers of Russia, China, and Iran dating 28 August. A party which itself systematically violates an agreement cannot use a mechanism set out thereunder, and this is a key principle of international law, specifically the Clean Hands Doctrine, the Pacta Sunt Servanda principle, and the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice. And logic, basic justice, and common sense also point to this. Therefore, regardless of the assertions from our British and French colleagues, their claim cannot be used as a justification for any decisions or actions by the Security Council. Therefore, at both the procedural and the political levels, the outcome of today's meeting means one thing, there's one outcome. Conclusion. Since the Security Council did not adopt a resolution on the technical extension of the resolution 2231, then it ceases to be in effect in accordance with the established timeline, that is termination day for the JCPOA 18 October 2025. After this, any restrictions and rules set out thereunder, including vis-a-vis the Iranian nuclear program, are no longer relevant. As I mentioned today, there has been no snapback and there will be no snapback. Any moves to resuscitate anti-Iranian Security Council resolutions, which were in effect prior to 2015, are null and void. I would wish to stress separately that the UN Secretariat naturally has no justification for the renewal of the relevant mandates. Any attempts to do so would constitute violations of Article 100 of the Charter of the United Nations and would compel us to seriously reconsider the relationship with the Secretariat. Mr. President, Russia and China did everything possible to prevent the negative scenario in the development of the situation around the JCPOA and to give diplomacy a chance. Now, all responsibility for any consequences of today's vote, both for the situation on the ground and for the ongoing work of the Security Council, lies squarely with those states who did not support our draft. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Russian Federation for the statement. I shall now make a statement in my capacity as the representative of Republic of Korea. The Republic of Korea has firmly supported a peaceful and diplomatic solution to the Iranian nuclear issue and has been duly administering its responsibility as the President of the Security Council in accordance with the Resolution 2231. Last Friday, the ROK abstained from voting in consideration of our role of the President of the Council. Today, we are doing so again and wish to note one very important point. The key objective of Resolution 2231, which was supported by all relevant parties, is non-proliferation. Accordingly, the diplomatic efforts should focus on this common object. However, this endeavor is not clear in the draft reports. As we reverted to a pre-2231 landscape, the Republic of Korea will urge all parties to rekindle the spirit of the rigorous diplomacy that produced Resolution 2231 and to demonstrate their commitment to non-proliferation through tangible action. Thank you. I resume my function as President of Council. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Said Abbas Arakchi, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mr. President, let me begin by expressing our appreciation to Algeria, China, Pakistan, and the Russian Federation for voting yes to this draft resolution in support of diplomacy, the rule of law, and justice. I should thank China and Russia for tabling this resolution and for all the efforts they made throughout the process of informal negotiations with other parties concerned. We also thank Guam and the Republic of Korea for their decision not to vote against this draft resolution. They have all chosen the right side of history, since this draft resolution reflected a genuine endeavor to keep the door for diplomacy and dialogue open and to avoid confrontation and contest. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Iran has been a long-standing party to the NPT since 1970 and has acted as a responsible member ever since. We have pursued our inalienable right as prescribed under the treaty to peaceful nuclear energy with all transparency and readiness to address every question in good faith. 12 years ago, the P5+1 and Iran engaged, with foreign ministers meeting at the United Nations here and agreeing to seek a solution over the nuclear program. After 2 years of serious negotiations, the JCPOA, or the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, was concluded, a landmark achievement in multilateral diplomacy, unanimously endorsed by Security Council Resolution 2231. Iran fully implemented the deal, as confirmed by the IAEA in 15 consecutive reports. No country's nuclear program has ever been subjected to such rigorous inspections. Yet, in May 2018, the United States unilaterally withdrew from the JCPOA in clear violation of Resolution 2231 and international law, and began bullying other governments to follow suit. It presented no reason, no justification. Yet Iran remained fully compliant, predicated on European promises that their compensatory measures would protect the fundamental bargain of the accord, for Iran to agree to voluntary restrictions in exchange for sanctions lifting and other tangible economic dividends for the Iranian people. After more than a year of patience, and after the E3 made clear that it either would not or could not honor any of its promises, Iran was compelled to adopt remedial measures and reduced its commitments in accordance with its rights recognized under the JCPOA. Iran's measures were lawful, gradual, and fully consistent with its rights under the JCPOA and Resolution 2231. More importantly, they were designed to re-establish the fundamental premise of the 2015 Accord. Mr. President, today's situation is the direct consequence of the United States withdrawal from the JCPOA and the E3 EU failure to take any effective action to uphold their commitments. The United States has betrayed diplomacy, but it is the E3 which have buried it. This sordid mess did not come about overnight. Both the E3 and the US have consistently misrepresented Iran's peaceful nuclear program. In doing so, they have been parroting the Israeli regime's baseless allegations. This is doubly heinous, as the Israeli regime, as the occupying genocidal regime, is the only possessor of nuclear weapons in our region. The double standards at play are appalling and painfully obvious for the world to witness. Iran categorically rejects weapons of mass destruction, including nuclear weapons. These weapons are inhuman and contrary to Islamic teachings, as well as contrary to our defense doctrine. This principled position has been reaffirmed by Iran's supreme leader in his recent address. And yet, despite decades of unlawful sanctions, assassinations of nuclear scientists, and now outright bombings of our peaceful nuclear facilities, Iran has not violated the JCPOA, the NPT, or its safeguard commitments. While having unilaterally withdrawn from the JCPOA and bullied others to follow suit, Iran responded in good faith when President Trump called for dialogue upon his return to the White House earlier this year. 5 rounds of talks were held. On the eve of the 6th session, Israel, with US backing, attacked IAEA-monitored nuclear facilities in my country. The criminal Israeli regime murdered Iranian nuclear scientists along with their families in cold blood. In one case, killing an academic along with over a dozen relatives, including women and children. This terrorism was not called out by the E3 or condemned by the IAEA. Instead, we all saw how officials like the Chancellor of Germany openly hailed Israel for doing Europe's dirty work. In other words, Iran's pursuit of diplomacy was met with aggression. Once again, Washington betrayed diplomacy while the E3 buried it. Instead of mobilizing the Jumpstart dialogue, the E3 chose confrontation by initiating the so-called snapback mechanism. Iran, in contrast, chose diplomacy. On 9 September in Cairo, I signed a memorandum with the IAEA Director General. The measures was welcomed by the agency and the wider international community. Yet it was immediately met with unconstructive approaches from the United States and the E3. Here in New York, Iran again put forward several constructive proposals to avert an unnecessary and avoidable crisis. All were ignored. And here I have to remind the distinguished representative of France that 2 nights ago, I agreed with your foreign minister a framework agreement, but he was not able to get the agreement of the United States. The E3 and the United States acted in bad faith, claiming to support diplomacy while in effect blocking it. Regrettably, E3 chose to follow Washington's whims rather than exercising their independent sovereign discretion. The United States' persistent negation of all initiatives to keep the window for diplomacy open proved once again that negotiations with the United States lead to nowhere other than dead end, as also pronounced by Iran's supreme leader. Mr. President, the draft resolution submitted by China and Russia is a responsible move to prevent escalation and provide time and space for diplomacy. They have negotiated constructively and shown flexibility to reach consensus. The E3 and the US regrettably rejected Russia and China's fair initiative and pressured other Council members not to support it. Their words do not correspond with their actions. Their objective is to foment a crisis, not to jumpstart diplomacy. By blocking this initiative, the United States and the E3 have deepened divisions in the Council, weakened its credibility, and closed the window of opportunity they claim to seek. Mr. President, Iran's position on the E3's pursuit of the so-called snapback is clear and consistent. It is legally void, politically reckless, and procedurally flawed. We have conveyed this legal position, supported by well-documented evidence and arguments, in several letters to the President of the Council and the Secretary General. Together with Russia and China, Iran has also demonstrated the unlawful and provocative nature of E3's measures, most recently in the joint letter of 28 August 2025. That joint position made clear that the E3's 28 August communication to the Council President cannot, under any circumstances, be regarded as a valid notification under operative paragraph 11 of Resolution 2231. Iran has no obligations under it because the E3 breached their obligations under the JCPOA and Resolution 2231, thereby losing any right to claim significant non-performance. Their invocation of the so-called snapback mechanism is simply a stark abuse of process. The draft resolution voted on 19 September did not meet the requirements of Resolution 2231 and cannot restore terminated sanctions that have already ended. Likewise, the resolution put forward by the Republic of South Korea, on which the Council President abstained, carries no legitimacy. Attempts by Germany, France, the UK, and the US to revive terminated sanctions are therefore null and void. Resolution 2231 must expire based on the time frame agreed upon. All nuclear-related restrictions under Resolution 2231 will end permanently on 18 October 2025. Iran, along with many other countries, will not recognize any attempt to extend, revive, or enforce them after that date. We call on the President of the Security Council to declare today's decision illegal. We also call on the Secretary General to avoid any attempt to revive sanctions-related mechanisms within the Secretariat. Any attempt to restore terminated sanctions must be rejected. No resources should support this illegal mechanism. Those who pursue it will bear full responsibility for damaging the United Nations' credibility and integrity, as well as for any harm and humanitarian consequences inflicted on the people of Iran. Mr. President, the developments we have witnessed set a dangerous precedent. If agreements can be broken at will, no nation can trust international commitments. If unlawful measures are enforced by power instead of law, the Secretary Council risks losing credibility and authority. Such a situation would harm not only Iran, but the entire system of international law and collective security. The E3 and the United States bear full responsibility for the serious consequences of today's decision. By ignoring facts, spreading false claims, misrepresenting Iran's peaceful program, and blocking diplomacy, they have actively and intently paved the way for dangerous escalation. Dear colleagues, just as military attacks have failed to reach any of their declared objectives, the so-called snapback mechanism will fail too. The only solution is dialogue. The JCPOA proves this. Iran will never respond to threats or pressure. We respond only to respect. Today's decision has obliterated whatever remaining trust of the Iranian people in the promises of the West, and particularly the E3. The Islamic Republic of Iran bases its foreign policy on the wishes and sentiments of its people. It is prerogative of the E3 and the US to correct course and take meaningful action to build confidence and trust. In the meantime, we must adhere to what international law and the United Nations Charter make abundantly clear. Obligations cannot arise from invalid procedures or lack of consensus within the Security Council. And I thank you.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Arakchi for the statement. The representative of France has asked for the floor to make a further statement. I gave them the floor. Okay.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will be brief. A delegation has questioned the honesty and integrity of the French delegation. In their remarks, my delegation wishes to remind the delegation of the fact that facts are stubborn, like someone said some time ago. And the facts are as follows. The first fact is this. Iran is not in compliance with the obligations which emanate from the Non-Proliferation Treaty and which emanate from an agreement signed by Iran. Number two, in all of these recent days, intense discussions were held between the minister present here, whose presence I welcome, and the delegations of the A3 in particular, to seek to arrive at a way not to restore sanctions, to reimpose sanctions. These negotiations failed because Iran did not wish, and I repeat, to respect three demands issuing directly from the negotiations. The first demand, I reiterate, is resumption of meaningful, effective cooperation with the IAEA. This cooperation did not resume since inspectors are not in Iran and they are not at the facilities they should be able to visit. Now, the second demand is a clarity on the 60% enriched uranium stock, which has no justification in vis-a-vis a civilian nuclear program. This report was not presented. And I recall, third, resumption of substantive negotiations on substance, and not negotiations on conditions for negotiation. Second, a delegation questioned the Secretariat and cast doubt on the Secretariat, and this is not in accordance with the rules stipulating that the Secretariat does not receive instructions from governments, but rather fulfills its obligations, which it has been doing in a professional manner and fully in compliance with its responsibilities. Third, and with this I wish to conclude, by stating that the path of negotiations remains open. And for France, and more broadly speaking, for the E3 and the European Union, the path of negotiations for us is ongoing on the basis of the that we set out with, I recall, the objective for the Iranian nuclear program to be in accordance with the obligations stipulated under the NPT and in accordance with the goals of a purely civilian program. Thank you.
Yeah, I thank the representative of France for the statement. The representative of Russian Federation have asked for the floor to make a further statement. I gave them floor, please.
I'd like to very briefly react to the statements of my French colleagues. Jerome, your explanations just sounded even less convincing than your previous statements, so I would suggest you not take the floor anymore because you're digging yourself in even deeper. You put forward supposed facts that have no connection to reality, forgetting to mention the most important fact, which the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Iran mentioned, and then that has direct reference to your country, that there was a draft agreement between Iran and the E3, which was supposed to be adopted and which would have allowed us to prevent this crisis, but your elder brother from the United States did not allow you to go forward with this agreement. You forgot to mention this, and this very eloquently illustrates the true independence of your country in the international arena. As for your claims regarding the Secretariat, your criticism, I would like to just remind you that one time, some time ago, one delegation tried to to launch or trigger snapback in conditions very similar to today's, when there was no unity in the Security Council regarding what this procedure meant. At the time, the legal department of the UN and the Secretariat decided that lacking unity in the Council, they could not resume sanctions and restore the sanctions committees that had already been eliminated. We don't see any difference between that situation and this one, and today's situation. I'm sure that the Secretariat of the UN will take the right decision and will not bow to your pressure, because we are in favor of common sense and international law, whereas you're trying to impose a rules-based order, which you yourself are trying to formulate on the fly in this room. Thank you for your attention.
I thank Representative of Russian Federation for the statement. His Excellency Mr. Said Abbas Araghchi, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Islamic Republic of Iran, has asked for the floor for the statement. I gave him the floor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would be very brief. I think in response to what the French representative said, the Russian colleague said what it should be said. Only one or 2 points. He claimed that the agency's inspectors are not in Iran, but this is absolutely wrong. They are now in Iran inspecting our nuclear facilities according to the agreement I made with Rafael Garussi, the Director General of the IAEA, signed in Cairo. There is a procedure for these inspections agreed between Iran and the agency, and everything goes exactly according to what we agreed, what I agreed with the agency. And secondly, he mentioned that Iran has not responded to any proposals. This is exactly the other way around. I have made in the past 4 or 5 days here several proposals, and none of them were accepted. And actually, I have to, as I said before, one of them was agreed between Iranian and the French delegation, but then the French delegation couldn't deliver that. So these are claims which are all false. And the other claims that he made is also the same. I don't want to take the time of the Security Council meeting, but I would like to emphasize that Iran has been always ready to prove that its nuclear program is peaceful and would remain peaceful forever. And what we agreed in 2015 as JCPOA is a proof that Iran has good faith. We negotiated that deal in good faith, we concluded that in good faith, and we implement that in good faith. And it was the United States who withdrew, not Iran. And what we are saying right now is the consequences of that withdrawal. Again, this year, the United States proposed negotiation, and we agreed. And I was negotiating with the United States when they decided to attack us. So there is no reason why we should trust the United States once more. Once we negotiated, they withdrew. This year we negotiated, they attacked us. So this is the situation. Still, when I came here, I came with very constructive proposals. Before I come here, I signed an agreement with the agency in Cairo. And the Director General of the agency is quite satisfied and happy. And the cooperation between Iran and the agency is now going on based on that agreement. And as I said, the inspectors are right now in Iran doing their job. And I made proposals which was unfortunately rejected, and I would be available to give the details of those proposals to the delegations who are interested later on in our bilateral meetings.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Araghchi for the statement. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is now adjourned.